Hey,
On. How's everybody doing today? Pretty good?
Very good.
I'm doing great too.
little rough,
A little rough?
little rough.
That's completely fair. So, we're really excited. It is the last day of Dragon Con and a little bittersweet. But I think I've had a really, really great con myself, and we're going to talk more during our BritTrack goodbye panel, which is going to be live at 4 o'clock today. So make sure that you guys join us there. My name is Caro, and I am the BritTrack director. And with me, I have these lovely, wonderful gentlemen. I have Rob in the hat, who actually has his hat this time.
Hey, all. I may fall asleep during this panel, so just excuse this morning.
I know you're tired for a change.
I'm always tired Monday at con. I don't care whether it's downtown or here.
That's fair. And Rob is the assistant director of the BritTrack. I also have with us Matthew Brewer. How are you, Matt? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I'm just a little sad that this is the last day of the virtual con. But hopefully we'll have the actual con next year, 2021.
Absolutely. And at the end of our broadcast, we'll ask you guys to share any links or information where people can find you. And with us, we also have Bill Rich. How you doing?
Hi there. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever actually met before. We've seen each other and all that, but I've been around for a while. And thank you for inviting me to the BritTrack. I usually don't get to do it because I'm doing all kinds of stuff with the SF Lit Track and, of course, my theater group.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're super excited that we could have you with us, Bill.
Thank you.
So today we are going to be chatting about all things British comedies, making some recommendations as well as just kind of sharing some of the comedies that we're getting into, like this comedy act going on over here right now. You can't eat the logo. I'm sorry.
I'm trying.
I know.
How far back are we going? Should I start with the Canterbury Tales?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to focus on specifically, television and film, and make recommendations as far as British comedies are concerned, as well as just kind of chat about things we love. So for me, I got into watching British television through British comedies. I was very, very young, and PBS was airing. Grew up in California, and they were airing Are You Being Served in random episodes and times and intervals. And I just thought it was like this really hilarious show. And it hooked me in. And after that, I kind of just like jumped in and got into British television in general. And then my father, who's in the military, we got stationed in the UK for a short period of time. So that really was my just watching everything that I could see. So what is your first foray into British comedies? Let's start with Bill.
Okay, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and go back to The Goon Show. I actually discovered this in college, like my freshman or sophomore year, where I fell in with a bunch of people who were collecting old-time radio, and they said, "You've got to hear this." And The Goon Show started in 1951, which was even before I was born. So that's how far back it is. And I loved it, and I didn't understand 90% of it, but it was an anarchic blast. I don't know if anyone has ever heard it, but it's really fantastic. No-name people like Peter Sellers was in it, So
Spike Milligan as well.
Spike Milligan, yes. I've read his books, which are very funny and wry. Very good. Harry Seacombe, who I don't think went on after. He may have died earlier. I don't remember. But
Probably
he was
in the
very
70s.
funny. Huh?
Probably
70s?
in the 70s era.
Yeah, that's why I missed him. So then in college, the first actual television stuff I watched was Woodhouse Playhouse, which is just wonderful, charming British humor, and then All You Beans, and of course the Pythons. And Python was really big in the mid '70s during my college years, and fantastic.
What is the Goon Show like about for those that don't know?
It's not about anything. It's a bunch of sketches with all the same characters. There's a wide variety of characters that 4 people play, and it's just anarchic fun. If you're not into British accents and all that, you will not understand some of what's going on, and you won't understand some things just because you don't get the cultural references, which there's tons of. But it influenced everybody. It influenced the Pythons. It influenced Beyond the Fringe. It didn't, in the Fringe stuff, and it influenced everybody for at least 50 years. So, and you can listen to a lot of them on the on YouTube, and you can buy the CDs from Amazon. I don't get any money for this, but
right.
And hi, Sue.
Yeah, hi, Sue. Also, okay, so that was a great introduction. What about you, Matthew? How were you introduced?
Well, it was basically a weird way. In a way, my mom was watching BritComs, and so I would sneak peek and watch, and it was Are You Being Served? And then for in another weird way, there was a show that was on Fox Family called Oh No, Mr. Bill Presents, which showcased like clips of British comedies. So it showcased Mr. Bean and clips and other groups of comedies, of sketch comedies. So it kind of grew from one gem to another gem, and then as I got older, I've been watching a lot more British comedies, especially ones that kind of had its gems, had its seeds to American adaptations, like like To Death Us Do Part, Man About the House, Steptoe and Son, and all that. So that kind of, and seeing how their version was vastly different from the ones we aired, as they were more
vicious.
Yeah,
right.
more vicious, and
This is true. This is very true. And Rob, so what was your first experience with British comedies?
Well, my grandmother raised me, and she used to love watching PBS. She liked the Masterpiece Theater, which aired over here on our local PBS stations. And then it was actually her and my aunt who introduced me to British comedies. The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin is one of my early loves. Butterfly.
What's that about? I've never heard of that one.
The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin is about a man named Reggie Perrin, who his life just steadily goes downhill from the first episode. And then about halfway through the series, he starts getting himself back together. And that's why it's called The Fall and Rise. But he has this wild imagination that whenever he's in a stressful situation, he'll imagine something and it just affects him.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's really funny. And then Butterflies was about a woman who was considering having an affair with a man. Yes. In a typical British fashion, they made a comedy out of it, but it was really good. And then, of course, along came Monty Python, and I spent the next 40 years perfecting my Python voices.
And in Reginald Perrin, Leonard Rossiter was the main character, and he was just a fine British actor. He was very snide in his comments and stuff. Very good.
Yeah, and he also did Raising Damp in the 70s, and his last role, which was Tripper's Day, which was his last role in a sitcom before his passing. After his passing, they aired it, and then they retooled it for another British comedian called Bruce Forsyth, called Slinger's Day, and that added 2 more series for it. So
Okay.
Leonard Wassler was a versatile actor in the comedies. So
And he was in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He plays the Russian that is talking to
Oh,
Haywood Floyd on the space station. This is my favorite movie. I've got everything in it memorized.
Oh,
yeah.
But yes, playing a serious role.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting when we see comedians in serious roles. So moving on. So out of what you've watched, what would you say are your go-tos? Like when you are, filling down the dumps or you just want to have a good gutted laugh. What is it that what's your go-to? You're going to put it on. You may have seen every single episode, but it's the thing that you have to watch at least once a year, obviously, maybe more often. So we'll go to Rob first.
well, my once a year indulgence is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I have to watch that movie at least once a year, and I crack myself up every time. For comedies, I like the IT Crowd and Black Books because they're just Black Books.
Yeah, what's that?
It's about this Irishman named Leonard who owns a bookstore, but he never wants to sell anyone, and he's cross and grumpy. And the shop owner next door, who he's friends with, and then all of a sudden, this other guy turns up and starts actually selling books, and the hysterical situations to get into. It's bizarre, it's surreal, and I can't decide whether or not I want to be Leonard or not, but I want to be Leonard-like. In that I work with the public as well, and I know how he feels.
Nice. Okay. Those are all really, really interesting. Okay, Matthew, what about you? What's your go-to you watch?
It varies from days, but the ones that I watch, like I try to at least watch once at least a couple times a year, it's mainly All You Being Served, a few episodes of that, or Steptoe and Son, or with the climate now, I would watch maybe Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister and Till Death Us Do Part, because with everything that's going on now, I always feel like those two shows kind of with Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, how absurd the government is, and even though our governments are in the U.S. is different than the U.K., I would see that there's some similarities of getting through the red tape of getting something done, and how it's hilarity. And with Death Us Do Part, with all the situations with the climate that's going on right now, with racism, sexism, all that, I feel like it's still relevant now, even though it might get a lot of PC, or people might be saying it's PC, but it's like, it's still relevant now. Trust me. There's some things on those shows that are still relevant with all the topics you heard in the 60s and 70s. It's still sort of relevant now, and you can have a good laugh about it.
Nice. Okay, those are really great suggestions. Bill, what do you think?
So two of my favorites are both based on works of P.G. Wodehouse, and probably one of the greatest humorists ever. And Wodehouse did Wodehouse Playhouse. He was actually alive when the shit series started, and it was wonderful. It had Pauline Collins and John Alderton, who are still married to each other, playing all the couples in different actual stories. And then, of course, Jeeves and Wooster with the wonderful Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie.
Oh my God.
It's just the best version of Jeeves and Wooster ever done, including the ones done with David Niven and I can't remember, Arthur Treacher back in the 30s, because they didn't capture the whimsical of it. And then I also love a lot one of the really old shows where I fell in love with Felicity Bloody Kendall, which is a reference to a Monty Python skit. Felicity Kendall, The Good Life, also called Good Neighbors in America. Yeah, and she's adorable. By the way, she shows up in an episode of Pennyworth, if you guys haven't seen that. She's actually there. I went, that looks a lot like Felicity Kindle, but it can't be, and it is.
Yeah. So Jeeves and Woosters is you mentioned. What is, for those that don't know, what is that show? What's the premise for that?
Okay, so it is a rich playboy who does not need to have any job or anything like that, and his butler. His butler is, of course, much smarter than he is. It started in the books in the 1920s, and it's set in that vaguely post-World War I era, but they never really tell you when it is. And he kept writing the stories up through the 60s, and it's just wonderful. It's he's always trying not to get married. and his parents, his not actual parents, but usually like his uncles want him to get married or something like that because he touches them for money sometimes. And no, it's hard to explain Jeeves and Wooster because it's so definitely Woodhouse. It is probably the greatest creation he had, although I love all of his work. And I just start with one episode of it and you will be hooked. Or read the books. They're incredibly good.
Oh, I didn't know they had books.
There were a bunch of short stories, a couple of novels, but it was short stories that he published throughout his life.
Okay.
And they're even better than the TV show, but it's even better when you've watched the TV show and you hear Bertie and Jeeves talking to each other in the voices of Fry and Laurie. By the way, and Fry and Laurie did a sketch show together called A Bit of Fire and Laurie, which is fantastic.
And they worked together with Rowan Atkinson in three series of Blackadder.
Blackadder.
It was two.
Two? Yeah. Well, it was three.
Hugh Laurie had a couple of cameo roles in the first two series, but he didn't become a regular until series 3.
Right.
Same. But I feel like it felt like he was in all the series, and again, the Butler and Jeeves and Woodhouse. It reminds me. It kind of has some familiarity to the third series of Blackadder. And there was the Blackadder was the Butler, and Laurie was the thick-headed, thicky Prince, and that work. It feels like it's somewhat similar in some ways, but more absurd.
And you know what's interesting in since we got into Blackadder, which is another fantastic show, is the Hugh Laurie and the character that Hugh Laurie plays, not Hugh Laurie, Rowan Atkinson, the character he plays starts off very high up in the nobility and very stupid, and by the end of season 4, he's very smart and very low down. Subtlety. Subtlety.
I adore Rowan Atkinson, just like in general, and when he shows up in random things, like what is it, The Fly? The movie The Fly, he's in
with Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, yeah, he's in it. He's Jeff Goldblum's boss.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And he's a stage actor, and he's just like super obnoxious. And it's just his he's on screen for maybe just a few minutes, and I believe it's him. I'm pretty sure. People can correct me later. But
they will.
And I know they will. And thank you, because I want to make sure that we say things correctly, and it's important.
We look forward to your letters.
Yes. But that's definitely he's incredible. I love all the skits. One of my favorite iconic Mr. Bean skits. My favorite two are the turkey, when he gets the turkey stuck on his because he goes in to get the watch, but he sticks his head in the turkey, and then he's trying to get ready for his date. And oh man, it's so funny. And then when he goes to the store and buys like a chair, and he puts it on top of his
oh yeah,
and then he has to like drive with brooms home, and it's hysterical. It gets me.
And that poor Reliant Robin that he smashes up every time.
I know.
So I know. terrible confession to make is that I am not the biggest fan of Mr. Bean.
Really?
It just doesn't work on me. However, Rowan Atkinson is my favorite master.
That is fair.
He was never the master.
Wasn't he the master?
No,
He was
the doctor.
No, it was Jonathan Price.
That's right. I'm
Jonathan
confusing
Price.
Jonathan
That's
Price.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like Price and Atkinson as the doctor and the master.
I would have loved to have seen Rowan.
This is what happens when you get old and you can't remember stuff.
Right.
Okay, we're all
That's
getting
okay.
there. We're lucky.
So I know for me, I love slapstick comedy, like especially British slapstick comedy is just I just adore. It's just really funny, and I of course love The Young Ones. I think it's a great 1980s comedy show. There's 2 seasons of it. No, I haven't bought the DVDs yet. They ask me every year if I bought the DVDs. If not,
I have them.
I have, I have the tapes. I do have a tape to VHS player, and it is The Young Ones is a fantastic show. If you've not seen it, it's something that you should absolutely go out and watch. It's got Rick Mail, which if you've seen the movie Drop Dead Fred, if you've seen Drop Dead Fred, no, I have not bought the DVDs. The internet knows. No, I have not bought the DVDs yet. But it's got Rick Mail in it, who, if you've seen Drop Dead Fred, the movie, he plays Drop Dead Fred. You also have Adrian Edmondson in it, who's like one of my favorite people. And then you have Nigel Planner.
Yep.
Who is hilarious. And I can't remember Mike's the actor's name off the top of my head, the fourth guy. And I'm so sorry, I cannot remember his name. But it is about 4 flatmates that live together. And one of them is a punk. One of them is a radical poet. One of them is a hippie. And the other one is like your standard kind of preppy, like still a little bit in the disco era yuppie. And
Christopher something.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, it's
Was it?
not Christopher.
Did he come from? Did he have a condo in the 100-acre wood?
I'm gonna. I have to look it up. It's
Not Christopher Robin.
I'm looking it up.
Oh, yes. Okay, he's looking it up.
So I actually have an interesting story. I went to Australia for the Worldcon, and these people who were like, 18 or 19, and I was in my late 30s, they said, if you like British stuff, you've got to watch this. And I sat down and watched the first episode with them, and I thought, this is the most disgusting, horrible thing I've ever seen. By the 4th episode, I was completely hooked. It's that addictive. It was terrible because I was like, I hate this. I hate all these people. Why this is so funny?
It's very, very true. But like, yeah, the Young Ones, I think, changed television because it was one of the first major shows where there was extreme overt commentary as on that on the 80s, and then also I think the type of slapstick that they were doing was very unique for television. It was a little more raw, a little more like rough. They also had very famous bands perform on the show, and they had Alexi Sale, who also another good recommendation is the Lexi Sale Show, which is
that fought.
Which was a late night, think like Jimmy Kimmel in 1980s, like TV show. And he was on The Young Ones, and he would, have different roles. He was a landlord. He was the different members of that landlord's family. He was, they also had puppets in this show. They little like vignettes that they would insert into it.
God, who would ever do puppets?
And I don't know. Some weird.
Jerry Anderson. So have you seen the 5th roommate in The Young Ones?
Never.
The 5th roommate.
There's like a
Oh my
presence
God,
there.
even I know about that, Karen.
No.
Yeah, go to the YouTube and look up the fifth roommate of, and there's this whole thing of showing you stills where you can see this person, and it never talked about. They don't mention it. It's just there in
I'll
every
have to watch
episode.
that. I don't know about that.
I didn't know about it either. I'm
What's
not
really
trying to lord it
funny-
over you. No, it's just fascinating.
Well, what's really interesting is that like Adrian Edmondson is married to, is it Dawn French or Jennifer Saunders?
Jennifer Saunders.
Jennifer Saunders. And so Dawn and French, and they were actually in an episode that was cut out. And the clip was cut out because of what happened in the clip. And which you'll have to go internet search because it's hysterical. And you know,
Just a link.
I know, right? They were huge influences in the 80s on just writing in general. And their tour that they did, Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, they got together because they met, you know, in the comedy circuit. And all these people did. They ended up going on to, you know, do influence all these different shows moving forward into modern day. Like one of the most modern shows that I really, really enjoy this comedy is Miranda, you know, which is absolutely hilarious. Miranda Hart is in it. And the guy who plays Lucifer, what's his name?
Tom Ellis.
Yes, is in it as well. And seeing him in a comedic role like that is
I met Ade Edmondson at a book signing he was doing in London. And it was a novel that he wrote, and it was pretty good. So that was weird, because he looked so normal.
Yeah, it is. He's very different because he's got stars like in his head in the
Yes, yeah.
right? And it's the iconic like red mohawk-ish spiky hair going on. But as far as like moving forward in time to like more modern shows or, you know, stuff from like the 80s and the 90s and on, you know, what are some other things that you think are, if you're into British comedies, you need to make sure that you see this. Let's go to Rob first.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely say Coupling, which was a sitcom that was it's a Friends-like comedy, except that it's actually funny. And then the Americans took Coupling, and they tried to make an American version, and it was horrible. It's like you have a blind date with this amazing person, and it turns out they're just a plastic blow-up.
And who produced it, Rob?
The British show was actually produced and written by Stephen Moffat.
Exactly.
And Sue Virtue, which is funny because they wrote the scripts, and the two main characters are named Steve and Susan. So they actually based those characters, named them after themselves. So Stephen Moffat, of course, of Doctor Who, Sherlock, Jekyll, the new Dracula series that aired last year. He also did Coupling.
Okay, all right, Matthew. What's another like? You gotta watch this.
Okay, let me finish. Let me answer Let me give you the first answer to the question that the missing person. It was Christopher Ryan. That was
okay, Christopher Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you. And I'm gonna go off on a one because this is something that if you're African American, you might love this show because this aired probably in a short period of time in America, but this show was called Desmond. And this yes, and it was like a Guyana family played by, I can't remember I've lost the name again of the lead. I'm gonna have to, but it was Desmond Ambrose who wants a family barbershop, who always dreams who wanted to go back to Guyana, and his wife has kind of settled and more straightforward, and his two kids who were born in Britain are pecking, and it's a hilarious, it's a great take. I consider it more of a low class version of the Cosby Show, but a little bit funnier, better. It has good and it has and it's really good. It also has it takes the embrace of all cultures of Africans in London. So you go. So it's a really good for anybody who is African American like me. If you want a good British African show, that would be Desmond's, and it had a good run. It had like 6 or 7 series.
Yeah, it was like fun. 6. It was like 6 series, and I mean, it almost reached 100 episodes. And I looked it up for you. It's Norman Beaton played
Desmond.
Yeah. And they're from Guyana, the family.
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing is, those Norman Beaton and the person who played his wife actually played 2 different characters on the British remake of Good Times called The Fosters, which also started which was Lenny Henry's first television regular role.
So that's Dawn French's husband.
Yeah. Former husband, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Pork Pie was a follow-up show to Desmond, and that was pretty good. It was a little different, but it was a spin-off that they ended up doing.
To kind of continue the series without Desmond after Norman after he passed away.
Yeah. Which was pretty. I mean, for a show to be that funny, and then also, to go on after such a loss is pretty remarkable. It's a really, really good show. That's a great suggestion. Bill Rich, what is yours?
I have 3 fairly recent ones I wanted to compliment. 2 of them with the brilliant Richard Ayoade. Is that how we pronounce his name?
Ayoade.
I'm not there yet. So the first one, of course, is the IT Crowd, which is dear to my heart because I'm a geek and write computer programs. And then Garth Marenghi, which is one of the funniest shows for me. Rob is not thrilled by it, but I liked it, especially.
I've not seen it. What is that about?
It's this sort of pompous writer. As a character who's presenting various adaptations of his stories, and of course, it's all fake, but it's really fun. Yeah. I think it's funny, so I'm sorry. But then I actually saw a comedy that's also a little bit of a drama that's brand new, like it's just done 2 seasons now. Sex Education.
Oh yeah,
which has the guy from what was it? It's some kid actor who's now 20-something playing a teenager, but it's set in northern England, and it's all about kids learning stuff, but it's much deeper than you would think, because the hero's mother is a sex therapist, which is how he gets into doing this stuff, even though he's completely embarrassed. And she's played by someone named Gillian Anderson, whom you may have heard of, but who does it with her British accent as opposed to her American accent and her Canadian accent.
It is Asa Butterfield.
Yeah, Butterfield. Yes, he was in. Was it Hugo? Was that the one he was?
It was Hugo. He was in that horrible Ender's Game.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
mercifully. But he's really good, and he's 20-something and playing a 16-year-old, and he can because he has that baby face, that probably lasts until he's 30. Then it'll just drop down and he'll be an old man.
Right.
I actually thought of a show that is kind of based off of both you, Matt, and Bill. It was fairly new, and it talks about the Black experience in London. It's called Chewing Gum.
Okay.
I've seen a little of that.
It is so funny. It is not. It is definitely an adult show.
Yeah.
But it stars Michaela Cole, who you've probably seen in a new show called I May Destroy You, which is over here in America. But she wrote and produced this show called Chewing Gum, where she plays this girl who falls in love with this guy, but he's white, she's black, and her mother is from one of the.
Oh wait, I have
French
seen
islands.
episodes of that.
Yes. Well, she's from one of the Caribbean islands, I believe.
Yeah.
And yes. Oh my God, it's so funny and awkward. But
wasn't she in Misfits for like an episode?
Probably.
I think so.
Because I know Chewing Gum was her big breakout, as far as I was able to tell.
Okay.
But, she was also in an episode of Black Mirror, the one where you are raided by everyone. She was the ticket taker in the airport.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hilarious.
All right. So I think we should at least mention the most obscure, longest running, incomprehensible comedy in British television, The Last of the Summer Wine. Has anyone seen this?
I have not seen this. What is this about?
I've seen clips.
It's these old people. Well, actually, it's old people and young people who talk about, and they live in the west part of England. They are incomprehensible to Americans. You have to actually run the subtitles, and you still don't understand because they use a lot of dialect. And it's like, what the hell is this?
You're like
Googling. It's run forever. The people who start off at playing the old folks are now dead, and the children are now the old folks because it's been running for over 30 years.
There's like one guy who was on, only one actor who was
everything
on the whole series.
Wait, have they stopped it?
Yeah, they stopped.
Sure?
They stopped it. They stopped it a long time ago.
So what was it called again?
The Last of the Summer Wine. And it's one of these shows that, because of the accent, no American, you really have to run the subtitles to know what they're doing.
I feel like that when I watch Letterkenny, and I gotta turn it on. I'm like, pause. What does that Canadian term mean? Yep. This is another great, fantastic, hilarious show, and is a big part, especially of my friend group. And we actually, one of the jokes of the show is they throw a soft party for this older, friend, their friend, and they're in their I'd say mid 30s, late 30s, and so we actually throw soft parties for our friends. It's
is that a party where everything is soft?
It's where everything is streamers and unicorn, like a little girl's party for like a princess party, but instead it's for an adult. So it's just really fun and something. Okay. It's
I like Rob's expression here.
You have to watch Letterkenny to get it. You would like Letterkenny. It's really funny. Yeah. But another show I know that I think that is really good that needs to have, to talk about is Gavin and Stacey. Is a great, fun romp. It's got James, what's his last name?
Corden.
James Corden, and they did a remake recently of it as well. And
was it a remake or was it
I think it was a special.
It's a special that they did where they continue this. It's really good. And then one of my most recent watches with Idris Elba, I can never remember. Elba. He did a show on Netflix called Turn It Up Charlie, and it is hilarious. If you think films like Daddy Daycare or Kindergarten Cop, it's got that kind of premise. And he is actually a DJ trying to make it big, and he ends up trying to get a job, and as a result, he accidentally gets a job for this producer to be a nanny. So it's really funny. It's actually currently running on Netflix right now, and I highly recommend it. What is this?
He can understand. He lived close to where The Last of the Summer Wine was filmed.
Oh. You lived in that, and I have this large. Okay.
I want to mention a couple of classic women's sketch comedies. We've forgotten entirely to mention them. Tracy Ullman, who went both sides of the pond and is brilliant both places, and the Catherine Tate show. Yes,
the Catherine Tate show.
Both sketch comedies, run by women, as it were. Very good. And then classic, going way back, That Was the Week That Was. That's before Any
Oh,
of us
wow.
were born practically.
Mhm.
I was actually born, but the rest of you. But that was the week that was wonderful stuff from what I've seen, because they didn't keep very many episodes that was entirely topical. There was an American version that lasted 2 days, which had actually it lasted like several weeks, but it failed. But it introduced Tom Lehrer to the world.
Okay.
He wrote songs just for the show. He was the most successful part of it. But that was the week that was a very good show, and not the 9 o'clock news and all those other parodies.
Sarah Murphy,
Yeah.
you're asking what was that one called? We've probably talked about a lot since you posted that question, so if you could remind us.
Yeah, I mean, the one I talked about, I think right when she posted it, was Turn It Up Charlie is on Netflix.
Okay.
Mention. And then Bill was talking about Catherine Tate and Tracy Ullman's shows. So hopefully it's that one. Catherine Tate's fantastic. For those of you who don't know who Catherine Tate is, Catherine Tate played Donna Noble in Doctor Who, and she also has been with us at DragonCon before. So that's some fun.
And she's very funny in her own right.
Really funny in her own right. This is very true. Okay, so are there any other shit that you want to squeeze in there? We'll start with Rob, that you think that people need to comedies need to see.
Pass.
That's a good show.
Come back to me, because I was too busy futzing with the on-screen thingies to pay attention to what you were saying.
That's fair. Bill, what's something else that I know one thing, if you've not seen The Mighty Boosh. If you've not seen The Mighty Boosh, it's a show that you should watch. I think it's hysterical. Especially if you like weird things like Rick and Morty, then you'll love The Mighty Boosh. And another, show genre of comedy that we've not talked about is panel shows. So Rob, can you describe what a panel show is? Because it is very unique to British television as far as...
Well, I will this time, because I know you did a lot of describing on last night's DCTV fan panel.
So Rob,
for those of them at home,
for those at home,
okay,
is a panel show.
If you've ever seen shows like What's My Line, or
To Tell the Truth,
To Tell the
Truth, where they have a bunch of celebrities.
This is from my generation, guys.
Right. Well, there's a new version. There's a new version of To Tell the Truth that's out there. Where they get celebrities and comedians, and they have them discuss a topic, or the host brings up a question and they have to answer the question. And the point of the show is not to get points, even though there's usually some sort of point system, but the point is just to be funny. If you're funny, or in the case of one show, which is called QI, if you're interesting, then you'll get points. But it's basically a bunch of comedians who get up there and be funny, have fun. It's quick, it's an ad-lib thing, and it's just hilarious. And I really love the panel shows. One of my favorites.
So famous ones like really going My Word, which it was a radio show, ran for a million years, where they basically made puns, and they made elaborate puns. I'm sorry, I'll read that again, which I think was another radio show. It may have done television also, but it was a commentary on the news, and there's a lot. There's one with Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry is not the one who's doing. He used to do QI, but I think he did another one before that, and I can't remember what it was. It may have just been radio. I can't remember what those radio.
I know Sandy Toksvig does QI now. Over, I think after M, or at M, something like that.
Yeah. I know. For me, I like Countdown or
8 out of 10 cats.
Does Countdown,
right?
Which you can watch on YouTube. And if you've not watched 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, Rob introduced it to me, and it is hilarious. So, Raul, will you describe what the premise is for 8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown?
Okay, well, in order to do that, I have to briefly tell you about the 2 shows that make up 8
Yes.
out of 10 Cats does Countdown.
Oh,
Okay, so 8 out of 10 Cats.
Well, first there's Countdown,
Okay.
which is yes, Sarah Murphy. It's the name of the one with the math and the words.
that's a number conundrum.
Yes, and it's basically it's very intellectual. Where it's like Scrabble for the first part, where they put up a bunch of letters, you try to come up with the longest word, and then the second part of the show is where they randomly choose some numbers, and then they choose a larger number, and you have to use the basic arithmetic functions, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, to come up with that number using the smaller numbers. I know I've lost you, but trust me, it gets funnier.
I was a math major. This is scary.
and the piggyback on the countdown part, that is actually, it was based off of a French show way back in 1972 that's still running to this day. Those 2 shows are still running. They have not got canceled. So it's a big hit both in France and Britain.
8 out of 10 Cats is a panel show that has 2 teams, and they talk about the topical things of the day. And what was it? It's think of it, Family Feud, except there's a lot less kissing.
There hasn't been kissing since 1985.
It's hosted by Jimmy Carr, who, if you've ever seen his stand-up, it's hilarious, and a lot of times it's gross, but it's always funny.
And so who is it that comes out? Who is it that always comes out?
You're thinking of 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown.
Okay.
It'll come to me as soon as I'm not thinking about it. So 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown is they took the people who were on 8 out of 10 Cats, comedians, and they put them on Countdown.
A game show.
a game show, an intellectual game show. And it's some of the funniest, most horrific things you've ever seen. There are some people there who really know the words and they get it. And oh my God, Travis, you need to stop it.
It sounds like a happy price.
And then they have people who are absolutely hopeless at this, at anything. They can't add 101, which is actually the answer to one of the game shows. And one lady could not get it. She said, I can't get it. I got 100. And then there's one just sitting up there. She couldn't get it. So yes, it's funny. It's hilarious, and you never know what's going to happen. And in some shows, there's a little bit of nudity, so don't be surprised.
Right.
But yes, it is.
And there's cursing because it aired after the watershed hour, right? Like, so in the UK,
post watershed.
Yeah, after a certain time, it's just. Watch at your own risk.
No kids allowed.
Late night television. There's, you it's on you whether or not you watch it. And that's kind of the way that they treat it.
There's usually several people who are making up words there, Sarah. I think that's how they try to get half the points on the show.
Right. Right.
But Rachel Riley is the what we would know her in America as the letter lady, but she's actually a mathematician and I think a physicist.
Yeah.
So she's the most overqualified letter lady that they have. And then Susie Dent, she's their lexicographer, and they're both great. I love them both. And Jimmy Carr just takes the Mickey out of them, and they do it back, and it's just wonderful.
It's a lot of really great banter. And
yes.
So if you like Jimmy Kimmel when they play all the little games and do the little games on show, it's like that but for an entire hour, and just delightful. Oh yeah, Mock the Week is really great.
Yes.
Bill, have you seen Mock the Week?
I have not.
Well,
you have not seen it?
No, I need to.
Bill.
What about you, Matthew?
I have not seen that, but speaking of game shows, there is a game. Well, this is going to go back in the 70s, and again, it'll be an adaptation, but it's an adaptation of an American game show that actually lasted long, from 1979 to 1990, and it was called Blankety Blank, which really is called, if you think of the word, it's the American adaptation of Match Game. And on that show, it was the British adaptation of Match Game 73.
Okay.
And it really takes the piss out of that game, especially if you watch it with the Les Dawson era from 1984 to the end of that run, where it really takes the piss out of the show. The celebrities and the questions are kind of generically funny, bland, but the gameplay really is not that important. It's really the interaction with the host, which was first with the late and great Terry Wogan, and then Les Dawson took it over and really make the piss out of that show. And
the Match Game was that way too. It didn't matter. It was all the jokes they made that was the important part.
Yeah,
Hollywood Square is famous for that.
If we're talking about British game shows, there's a one that's actually hosted. I can't really think of the actor's name, but he's one of the current companions on Doctor Who. It's called
Bradley
The Chase.
Walsh. Bradley Walsh.
Yes, Walsh. Yes. And it's called The Chase, and it's pretty darn good. It's one of those question and answer ones. But they have celebrity versions that are funny. And there's another one. It's called Pointless, where you have to guess the least popular answer to the question, and you get points based on how few people have given your answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and going back, like in the 70s and 80s, game shows in Britain did not have like big budget prizes like we had in America. Because there was always a small limit. So Blankety Blank, when they did the Super Match Game, they would take a piss on the prizes because some of the prizes was like a folding chair or a portable television or a cheap deck area for your. So they take the piss on all those prizes because they were, especially the BBC, which was notoriously cheap. So they would take the piss out of those prizes,
Bill,
especially Les Dawson.
Bill, what's a show that you would recommend?
Right.
Oh, game show, or are we talking about shows in general?
Any shows.
Okay.
A game show, a comedy show.
Okay. So I noticed that someone posted there about comic strip, which I'm probably one of the few people who's also seen that, and it was basically sort of documentaries and things like that, and they weren't related to each other, but they were very funny. That was back in the 80s when that came out, I think.
Yeah,
that's been a while too. But thank you, person on Facebook that mentioned that. I said, oh yeah, comic strip. Yeah, I made a list of things we shouldn't forget at all, just to give them one or two things, and that is like As Time Goes By. Which was a very sweet romantic comedy. Dad's Army, going back to years.
Dad's Army is really good. Another one that's really great. It's on I think Netflix right now. Maybe is Upstart Crow.
Very funny.
It came out in 2016, and
David Mitchell
is hilarious. It is about William Shakespeare's life.
Yes.
And it is so funny, but also very similar to in acting style. Is really anything. Everyone knows, What We Do in the Shadows. Matt Berry's, in that. But he has a series from 2017 called The Toast of London. And if you really enjoy, Matt Berry and you like that kind of comedy of like What We Do in the Shadows, you would love him in Toast of London, which is actually on Amazon Prime, and you can watch it. It's super.
And he is hilarious in IT Crowd.
And he's so funny. He plays the older,
he plays the boss.
Yes.
He plays the boss.
Yeah.
Barry does in IT Crowd.
And we have not mentioned, in my opinion, the funniest comedy TV show ever.
What?
Fawlty Towers.
Oh.
I cannot watch an episode without losing my breath. My breath for that. And and for one thing, all the cast is perfect and it's wonderful.
Mhm.
Before we leave, I wanted to give you a quote from an American TV show comedy that I think sums up all of British television.
Mm.
It's my favorite TV show. It ran for 16 years on the BBC, and they did nearly 30 episodes. That's from the show The Good Place. And
Yeah.
I laughed so hard, I actually had to pause the playback because I lost it. I went, God, that is true.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Lola mentioned Chef. That's a great one too.
Mhm.
Yeah. We know what we haven't talked about real quick, and it's the last couple of minutes in this last 3 minutes, but I just want to mention that if you do not know who Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are, then I suggest that you Google them.
They have a new one, don't they?
New one? They have a new one. They have a new show coming out. I can't remember the name of it. They've done Spaced, which is hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Miranda Hart, who starred with Tom Ellis in Miranda, Tom Ellis played Lucifer. You would love Miranda Hart, who also she's in Call the Midwife, and she actually lightens everything up in Call the Midwife. But also she did a series with Nick Frost called Hyperdrive. Called Hyperdrive, which is set in space, and another comedy set in space is Red Dwarf. Because if you've not watched Red Dwarf, then trust me, you will come back here and say that thank you so much for mentioning Red Dwarf. It has been around for a really long time. It's awesome. Oh, it's not on Prime anymore? Oh, dang. Okay. So Toast of London, if you can get a copy of it, is worth it. Thanks for letting us know.
And someone mentioned Chef, which is also good.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Chef is so Gordon. So imagine if Gordon Ramsay had a comedy show.
And he was black.
And he was black.
and really, really talented and really, really funny.
That was Lenny Henry, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was Lenny Henry.
Yeah.
Lenny Henry.
And great.
Yeah, and then I have Absolutely Fabulous, but we haven't mentioned yet.
Absolutely Fabulous. It almost goes without saying, but it should be mentioned.
Yeah. Exactly.
There is one episode of AdFab that stars Idris Elba. In it.
Yeah.
I can't describe what it's about, but if you go watch it, you will never look at him the same way again. This image will be permanently burned into your brain.
I don't remember because I've watched them all.
I remember it now. I'm remembering it now. It's the payoff at the end is actually.
Oh my God!
Right, and so in our last minute, it's hard to say because there's so many great British shows that are out there. If you're looking for access to, Keen Eddie, Keen Eddie's.
Oh yes.
And we could sit here and talk for hours about British comedies. Vicar of Dibley is absolutely something that people should check out. British comedy, it's very unique. It's got its own style. And we absolutely love it here at the BritTrack. And we thank you guys for being a part of us today and watching us just talk about British comedies and make recommendations to you.
Glad we did this live.
Thank you. It's a great panel. So where can people find you, Bill? Where can they find you?
It's right underneath you, Carol, right there on the screen.
All right, so I run this radio theater company called Artsy, www.artc.org. And so that's what I'm mostly up to nowadays.
Okay. And then Matthew, where can people find you?
She's right next to Bill.
I have really nothing, but I'm planning on something very soon that might have something to do with television. And if you want to watch some, I'm going to do a very quick promo. Acorn TV, BritBox, YouTube. So those are your best bets. Or they're pretty much there.
Yeah, and so BritBox is a channel that you can get on Amazon. You can add it. You can add it on. It has some older shows. It's got a whole section of British comedies. It has almost all of classic series Doctor Who. And
you can get it separate from Amazon Prime too if you want. You don't have to get Amazon Prime in order to get it.
It has its own app too.
Yeah, you can fold it. If you have an Amazon Prime account, it's a little cheaper to get it through Amazon Prime. But if you don't have an Amazon Prime account, BritBox, getting that separate and having a separate website for that is really good. And Acorn TV is the same, set up the same exact way. Acorn TV has a little more modern stuff on it. It has a few classic things, but I'd say
the Raisin is great on Acorn TV.
Has so just as a recommendation, thank you for mentioning that. So as we leave you, and this is our last full panel besides our 4 o'clock goodbye, which we usually do every year, where we get feedback in order to improve the convention. Obviously, having the convention in person is one of the things that would be an improvement. Getting feedback, and that'll be live at 4 o'clock. So, Rob, where can people find us?
Well, you're on the left, and I'm on the right. No,
same joke.
BritTrack can be found over on YouTube and on Facebook. Just look for the BritTrack and Dragon Con, and we are also on Twitter at BritTrack, and we're on Instagram at DC BritTrack, and we're also on Discord. But I'll be smited if I can figure out exactly where we are on there.
We are in the Hilton channel under hashtag BritTrack discuss and hashtag BritTrack announce. You definitely should check us out. We like to do dance parties and gifts on there.
What she said. Got it.
So find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. We're everywhere. Thank you so much for being a part of our wonderful con. We can't thank you enough. Everyone have a wonderful and amazing rest of your Labor Day, and we'll see you back here at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. It's got nothing right here.